councillors and staff, it's 4:35, so I'll now officially open the meeting. And firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we meet on this afternoon, the Wiradjuri and Ngunnawal people, and pay my respects to the elders, past, present and emerging. The next item is housekeeping, and we've been through that with the staff, and people are in the room in the chambers. It's through the double doors to the right, out onto the street on the footpath, and wait further instructions. Next item on the agenda is live streaming, which is exactly what it means. That any comments or anyone speaking, and there's no one in public forum today, it will be live streamed to our audience. So attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behaviour and or comments. The next item, as I said, was item 3.2, public forum, which there's none of today. And then I asked to have a motion moved to bring item 21.188 and 21.189 forward, which is the election of the Mayor and Deputy Mayor. Councillor Horton moved that way, Councillor Flannery seconded. I'm calling for all those in favour. I think that's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. So on the paper copy, that's on page 39. So, councillors, 21.188, an election of the Mayor, and the recommendation is there in regard to how the voting will take place. Do I have a recommendation from the floor of how we should go about this? Councillor Armstrong.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'd like to recommend that we use the standard measure of a show of hands.
Thank you, councillor. That's seconded, councillor Flannery. I'll put that. All those in favour.
No question. Is there an alternative?
Councillor Walker, sorry.
I say, is there any alternative?
To the General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as I advised in an email based upon discussions with OLG, there is the options of a preferential ballot and an ordinary ballot or open voting. To hold a preferential ballot or an ordinary ballot, all councillors must be present in the chamber who will be participating in the voting of the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor. It is paper-based. That is a restriction. So it may appear to be a Hobson's choice. There's no choice at all. And should you wish to hold the election of the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor at this meeting, it would appear the only method open is open voting.
Yeah. Technology. Yeah, no other means. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor. So the next item that we brought forward is 21.189, which is the election of the Deputy Mayor. So could I have a recommendation from the floor as to how we might do that, please? Councillor Armstrong.
Mr. Mayor, I'll recommend that we use open voting in the same way as we do for the mayoral position.
Thank you. Councillor Flannery seconded that. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Against? No one's against. On that note, councillors, I will now go back and hand over to the General Manager, who will now be nominated our returning officer, and I will vacate the chair and the General Manager will take proceedings from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. So under Local Government General Regulation 2021 Regulation 394, the election is to be held in accordance with Schedule 7. This is for both the elections, so I'll talk in unison and then we will hold the votes, both for the Mayor, then the Deputy Mayor in that process. So under Clause 2 of Schedule 7, I am to announce as the returning officer the names of the nominees at this meeting at which the election is held. So this is for the Mayor. The Mayor will be the first one. I duly received two nominations, a nomination for Mayor being Brian Ingram and Margaret Rolls. I received only 2 nominations, so they are the nominations before you. So at that point, I do ask for a show of hands. I will ask the councillors, there was a process undertaken by my predecessor for the way in which the waiting for the nominations by open hands. It was done through a process where the names were folded, put into the hat. I can have that, and I will bring it up to the camera so you can see the validity of the bowl with the 2 names in it. And I'll show you the pieces of paper, and I'll fold that in front of you. I did receive, and this is just being open and transparent, I received the nomination for Brian Ingram first and Margaret Rolls second. I look to you whether or not you want to have a vote for whether it needs to go into the hat for how you vote, for which nominee you vote for by an open hand, or you just proceed from the way in which they were received. I'm in your hands, Councillor. I don't think this needs a vote per se, but if there is any discontent, I will ask that I go through the process where I do effectively draw it out of the hat on who you vote for first. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. I'm going to suggest that same process be followed.
Okay, so are there any objections to that with me following the sheets and who first? I'm not having any back. So the process, you'll see me come out, so I just want to make sure that people seeing it, because I'm just a small dot here, to see the process undertaken appropriately and transparently. So bear with me, councillors. No, I'll be right. So, councillors, I have one piece of paper. I have second piece of paper, and I have the bowl. Right. As you could see, councillors, the name drawn out of the bowl was Margaret Rolls, and the second nomination drawn out of the bowl was Brian Ingram. So on that basis, I will call for a show of hands for Councillor Rolls. So please do a show of hands. We have Marg Rolls, John Walker, Matt STADTMILLER, Chris Manchester and Rita O'Connor. So on the basis of that, I now ask for the votes for Councillor Ingram. Show of hands. I have Tony Flannery, Tony Wallace, Greg Armstrong, John Horden and Brian Ingram. So given that there is an equal vote, I now pass to of the Regulation 394, Part 4, General, choosing by lot. Well, it's tied candidates. First, Section 11, choosing by lot. To choose a candidate by lot, the names of the candidates who have equal numbers of votes are written on similar pieces of paper by the returning officer. The slips are folded by the returning officer so as to prevent the names being seen. The slips are mixed and one is drawn at random by the returning officer, and the candidate whose name is on the drawn slip is chosen. Part 13 says the result of the election, including the name of the candidate elected as mayor, is to be declared to the councillors at this meeting, and then to be delivered to the Secretary and the Chief Executive Officer of the local government, New South Wales. So, councillors, on this basis, you'll see me return up the front. I will then fold those pieces of paper, throw it back into the bowl, and draw, and we will go from there. Drew Brian Ingram out. That's the second piece of paper. First. I came out first? Yes. Oh. So, councillors, as you could see through the draw, the name I drew out of the bowl was Brian Ingram, and then I showed you pulling out the second one was Marg Rolls. So, on the basis of that, the elected mayor is Councillor Ingram, now Mr. Mayor. So we have, on that basis, I would ask that the resolution be passed that Mayor Ingram, in accordance with 13, Clause 13, Part 4, General of Regulation, the Local Government General Regulation 2021, Schedule 7, Section 394, that Brian Ingram be declared as the Mayor by me as returning officer, and the resolution to be delivered to the Secretary and the Chief Executive Officer of the local government. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that vote? Tony Flannery and Chris Manchester. Can I have a show of hands for that resolution? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moving through, as in my role as returning officer, I now go to the election of the Deputy Mayor, and under Clause 2, if it's under Clause 3 of the same regulation that I've been talking about, the election is, if only one councillor is nominated, that councillor is elected. So, the nomination for Deputy Mayor, I received two nominations, but a nomination, consent for that nomination was withdrawn. So that left only one duly nominated candidate, and that was Councillor Wallace. So under Clause 3 of election, if only one councillor is nominated, that councillor is elected. So I ask again, in the same manner in which they declared through the process of the election of the Mayor, can I have a mover and a seconder so that Tony Wallace be declared to the councillors as elected as Deputy Mayor by the Returning Officer, and for the delivery and sent to the Secretary and Chief Executive Officer. So I have Chris Manchester and John Horton moving that. Can I have a show of hands for the motion? And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. I now return the meeting to the Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager, and thank you to those councillors who've supported returning me to the Mayor's chair. The next item on our agenda is the expressions of sympathy. Could we please all be upstanding and have a moment's silence for the following, please? We'll take a moment's silence to express our sympathy for the passing of the following: David Evans, Edward O'Neill, John Rule, Joy Jubb, Shirley Dorr, Jennings Bosnicka, Maureen Lord, Elizabeth Carson, Ronald Hampton, Ronald Fuller, Stephen Davey, Peter Mason, William Cummins, May Slater, Charles Walton, Susan Rolls, Lata Remke, Lorna George, Henricus D. Reek, Mary Osling, Vivian Boyd, Sister Marie Mahoney, Peter DeBritt, Stanley Hennon. Thank you, everyone.
Question, Mr. Mayor. Was David Evans the former Boorowa Shire councillor?
Correct, Councillor Flannery. He passed rather quickly, I understand, a little while back. A great servant to the community through a number of roles, of course, on the Boorowa Council and through the garden. I just can't think of the right terminology for the garden work that he did in Boorowa. But, yeah, it was a great giver to the community and will be sadly missed.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So next item on the agenda, Council, is the confirmation of the minutes of our ordinary meeting on the 25th of August. I'm pretty sure 2015 is an error, but could I have a mover and a second for the confirmation of those ordinary minutes? Moved Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor Armstrong. All those in favour?
Mr. Mayor, can I?
Councillor Rolls?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a amendment, I suppose, to them. It's just that it was the motion 21-192. I think in the minutes it says defer report until further consultation has been made in correct format and plan of management is presented. Going back to what was passed at the meeting, it actually says defer the report until further consultation has been made as to the correct format and manner. in which the report and plan of management is presented. And I'd like to see that changed, please, in the minutes.
I'm lost. What page are we talking to, Councillor Rolls?
It is on page 20, I have a feeling. That be right?
Resolution 21192.
Yep.
Yep, got that. Yep, okay.
Yep.
What was it about?
It's about the Red Hill Reserve.
Oh, it's about the radio.
But it has to do with all the management of reserves. So
Thank you,
I'd just like the correct wording put into it, please.
Thank you, Councillor Rolls. The Minute Secretary has noted that, so
Thank you.
that will be done.
Thank you. Given that amendment, Councillor Walker.
Is that number right, 21192? Because 21192 appears on today's meeting.
I'm asking the same question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there is a report number. The report number 1213-21169 is the Draft Hill Reserve Plan of the previous meeting. The resolution is 21192. The report today is 21192, the report. So there are two things.
Right.
One is the resolution as resolved, and one is the report. The reason why these things happen, where the resolutions outstrip the reports, is sometimes there's multiple resolutions.
Thank you. I was on the same line, Councillor Walker, as well. So given those amendments to the minutes, councillors, and I had a move and a seconder, all those in favour of accepting those with that amendment? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. That takes me to 21183. Confirmation of the minutes from the Council's extraordinary meeting on the 1st of September 2021. I have a mover and a seconder for those. Councillor Rolls moved, Councillor Walker seconded. Thank you. All those in favour of those? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 21184 is the confirmation of the minutes from Hilltops Council extraordinary meeting 8th of September 2021. Same deal, councillors. I have a mover and a seconder. Move, Councillor O'Connor. Seconder, Councillor Manchester. All those in favour of accepting those minutes? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Takes me through to item 7, which is disclosures of interest. If we have any disclosures of interest for tonight's meeting, councillors, now is the time to declare it. I'll take that as a no. The next item, council, is a mayoral minute that was discussed at a workshop that we held in regard to infrastructure contributions reform. The General Manager and I took part in a webinar in regard to this matter, and there's some serious concerns about how this has been put up in a very open-ended way, that with the change of the person in a particular job could make it very, very hard for local government at our level. And look, I go just to the part that got me in, was where they would like to put all contributions into 4 regional areas and then disperse it from there. So we might have them contributions paid, and it goes to one of the 4 funds, and we might never see it again. So I have real concerns about it, and I said I would put this up as a mayoral minute, as other local government councils have, to show support with local government New South Wales, who are working very hard to try and defeat this, or if not, have inclusions that covers local government. Councillor Armstrong, did you have a question?
Just a comment more so than a question, Mr. Mayor. I support your position in this. I think this is an entirely unreasonable and untenable suggestion by the state government and moves by the state government. This clearly reeks of an opportunity for even greater pork barrelling by the current government and potentially the opposition than has been undertaken in past years, and that would be at the cost of rural communities, no doubt. This is entirely unreasonable, and certainly council should be writing the strongest objection that it possibly can to any suggestion that this legislation might pass.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Flannery.
Look, I'd just like to reiterate those comments. I think it's a big worry when you see something like this arising from the state government. They exert a lot of, and some would say excessive control over councils as it is, and to take away any ability we have to raise funds for infrastructure needs. I just think it's gobsmacking.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Manchester.
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, just a quick comment. I certainly agree with the comments that have been made. This has been going on for quite a while. It was actually, I think it initially was started or mooted by the Labor government back in the early 2000s. It's mainly brought on by local government themselves, especially the councils in Sydney and probably some of the coastal councils that have had a lot of Section 94 monies on buildings and that's meant to go to parks or other local developments, and they sit on these funds for years and years and years and don't do anything about it. Certainly the current legislation is not what we want, but it certainly needs looking into, and some of these councils that are doing the wrong thing need to be brought into line. And that was the problem where this arose probably 15 to 20 years ago. And it's still a problem now that the local councils are hoarding this money to build up their own reserves, and they're not going. I don't believe it goes to where it should be going.
Thank you, Councillor Manchester. On that note, there's no other commentary. I'll put the mayoral minute. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Takes us to next item, which is the mayoral report. Councillors, the report is in the business paper. The only additions I might add to it is a number of catch-ups with our local state member, Steph Cook, and Murrumbidgee local health workers. And I need to give a very special and big thank you and plug out to Peter Kirkwood and the people from Lavity who have been at the showground doing the COVID testing for our community. They have done an enormous job at the showground with the drive-through facility there. Of course, I think every and all them workers from Murrumbidgee Local Health have been doing it here and still doing it in the town hall. And I'd like to thank the community for coming forward. The testing numbers are really, really good. I had Jill Ludford ring me and Michael McCormick ring and talk about our testing numbers here are on par with Wagga. And given the size of the two communities, it's very good to see everyone coming forward. And for anyone who's live streaming tonight that may have not been tested, and then the next step is vaccination or vaccination first, please get tested. As I've been saying, until we know just the extent of the spread in our community, that will make it very hard to get it under control. So there's no new cases as of 8 p.m. last night, and I've had no notifications at all today, and neither has our local member. So that's as up to date as I am on the progress with it. But we expect an announcement tomorrow at 11 a.m. in regard to lockdown either being lifted or extended. I have said in my personal opinion, I think it will be extended, but that remains to be seen. That's a decision for the big people to make at 11 o'clock tomorrow. I imagine that announcement will be made. So again, thank you to all those people who've done such a wonderful job. And the rest of my month is there. If there's any questions in regard to any of it, happy to answer. Councillor STADTMILLER.
Just a quick one, Mr Mayor. I was informed by a resident that there was no seating available in the town hall over the weekend for testing, and just as to whether council can work with MLHD about providing some seating. One lady who was probably slightly in the age category actually did faint and had to be taken away, and the lines were quite long and snaking, and there was no signage that said that that person, if they were in that age bracket, could actually be tested from their car. So they unnecessarily sort of stood there for a long period of time. And that's a shame that we had someone faint in the town hall. So maybe we can work with MLHD to make sure that doesn't happen in the future. Thank you.
I'll address that matter, Councillor STADTMILLER. It's the first time I've heard a unfortunate incident like that. Everyone else and the hundreds of comments have been entirely positive in the highest regard But I will take that on notice and make sure that there is seating available. Thank you. So on that note, I'll move the mayoral engagement. All those if I get a seconder to that, yeah, Councillor STADTMILLER seconded. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. The next item is councillors' reports and meetings attended. Councillors, we have the written report there by Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Horton, Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Rolls. I'll start with Councillor Armstrong. Do anyone want to talk to any of their items, Councillor?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The meetings as minted and also as per the report, I did omit the Environmental Initiatives Committee that I sat in on last Thursday. So that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Horton?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have nothing to add.
Thank you. Councillor O'Connor?
I have nothing to add either. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rolls?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to add that I also attended the Cootamundra Electorate Small Business Support Forum on the 1st of September. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll go to Councillor STADTMILLER.
Meetings as minuted, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Walker.
Meetings as minuted.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The two extraordinary meetings, asset management meeting on the 2nd of September. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First, I'd like to thank my fellow councillors for their continued support in the role of Deputy Mayor. I appreciate that, and hopefully we'll go on and do more good things. Meetings as minuted. I would like to have attended the Asset Management Working Group meeting, but as I only received the agenda an hour and 10 minutes before the meeting, I wasn't fully apprised it was going to happen, so I don't go to meetings like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace, and the point has been received and taken. That takes me to Councillor Manchester.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. The meetings that are minuted, and I assume the two extraordinary meetings were minuted, so yeah, but if not, the two extraordinary meetings on the 1st and the 8th. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I think I've ticked everyone off for that one. So I'll move that they be accepted. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Rolls, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. That is unanimous. Now, I'm probably alluded to this. The next item is the Community Recognition Scheme, and guess what? I would like to council to address a letter to Peter Kirkwood and his organisation at Lavity for the work and the hours and the effort they put in, and the manner in which they himself and his staff treated everyone and anyone who turned up in the drive-through to be tested. It was a credit to himself and his organisation, his willingness to participate. Saturday morning, rain, wind, and smiles on their faces all the time. So I would ask that we'll put words together and send a letter of recognition off to them people. So I'll move that. Could I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Manchester, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Does anybody else have?
Yeah.
Councillor O'Connor. Councillor O'Connor, had your hand up? And she waving? No. Councillor Rolls got a hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Along your lines, I'd really like to also recognise the Hilltops community for the way that they came out. And this is reiterating your words you said earlier, for going out to be tested. I think it's been wonderful. And I'd like to see perhaps an open letter to the community thanking them for their support. Perhaps it could be in the local newspapers, recognising the willingness of everybody to pull together and to have such overall testing has been quite amazing. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. I'll move that a letter of recognition as such will be worded. I have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. All those in favour? Thank you. And just on that note, that I don't know, I've done half a dozen different radio interviews now, and I've made sure that I've mentioned that every time, and I actually have a Now that I'm still in the Mayor's chair, I'll be doing a little blog again with Michael McCormick and Steph Cook tomorrow in regards to all matters COVID. So thank you, Councillor Rolls.
Just, Mr Mayor, during that blog, no doubt you'll take the opportunity to express the community's great gratitude to the health of the MLHD for the outstanding work undertaken by their staff and running clinics at Young, Burrawa and Harden.
Yes, Councillor Armstrong, you're very correct. As I mentioned before, the people from MLHD have done a wonderful job, and they also went up to the mosque in Young and held a clinic up there. So a lot of good people have put in a lot of very, very hard work. So it's and it's been rewarded by people turning up. So it's all very good. Hopefully tomorrow's like today and there's no more phone calls for me. So that takes us to 188 and 189, which we've dealt with, which takes us to 21190, Local Government New South Wales Online Annual Conference, 29 November 2021. Councillors, there's a report there, and the recommendation is to determine at least 2 delegates to represent council and nominate 2 delegates to be registered with the voting rights, and consider motions to be put forward to the Local Government New South Wales Special Conference. I have a mover and a second. Moved, Councillor Manchester. Seconded, Councillor Rolls. Thank you. Okay, councillors, we're up for suggestions. Councillor Manchester's got his hand in the air.
Yeah, it's not to be represented, but I suggest that the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor make themselves available for the online conference, and if they can't, they contact one other councillor to take their part.
Thank you, Councillor Manchester. I'm happy enough to accept that. I'll ask my deputy if his thoughts on that. Councillor Wallace?
I attended last year, Mr Mayor, for the first time, and it was pretty uninspiring then. And it's only a 1 hour thing this time, and I think it's probably going to be even less inspiring. If anyone else has a burning desire to do it, I'd welcome their opportunity to experience the whole thing. Otherwise, I'll do it.
So it's pretty open there, councillors. If anyone would like to jump in, there's an opening there. But
I'd like to nominate Greg Armstrong.
And there's been a nomination for Councillor Armstrong. Do you wish to accept that nomination, Councillor Armstrong?
Certainly, in the spirit of great council fellowship, I'll accept the nomination, yes. And thank Councillor Horton for his confidence. And
I'm pretty sure Councillor Wallace just said thank you as well. Okay. Okay. Councillor Rolls has a hand up. Councillor Rolls?
Yeah, look, I'm not sure if this will be dealt with here, but I'm just looking at considering the motions. We did talk a while ago about having a workshop that we could put the motions together, and I know that some councils have actually been working on their motions. Has any further thought been put into that about us working? As Councillor Wallace, I think you said after the last conference, and I said beforehand that we really need to be able to put in some motions.
Yeah, Councillor Rose, I can concur with that, and only too happy, and I'll hand to the General Manager now, but anyone with any motions that they feel would be appropriate to go to the conference, by all means, put them in writing and hand them down. I'll hand to the General Manager. Councillor Armstrong, sorry, do you have a question?
No, there's an item in the action report that deals with this, I think.
Yes,
Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, the scheduling of the workshop. The previous 2 Wednesdays were taken up by other matters, so it threw us out a little bit, and we had our normal briefing. So I intend to hold a workshop in the next, to call a workshop within the next month. The conference motions is as early as practical. So we still have time to hold a workshop. We did mention it in newsletters asking for anyone with any thoughts, but I'm happy to bring on the workshop and get an invite out there for to invite people to come along and have a chat.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. And as I said, if any councillor out there with any notice of the motion they would like to put forward, please send them in. Councillor Walker?
Yeah, just a question, if I may. Having said that, there would not be an opportunity at this meeting, only being an hour, to put forward any resolutions from this council, would there, or would there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's this annual. My read on it is the annual general meeting is merely the annual general meeting. The motions are intended to be the special conference motions being held on the 28th of February 2022 to the 2nd of March 2022. So the way in which those motions are put forward is you, the current councillors, have nominated delegates to go to the meeting during your term. Any motions that are put forward by you would then can be passed before the close of this term. Alternatively, I would need to open it up to councillors, the incoming council, who whatever constitution is made up of. So it's a moving feast, but that's why they've put it out to the February-March, because of the COVID restrictions and the timing of the elections.
Thank you for that, Mr. General Manager. And I wouldn't spend too much time on a notice of motion in regard to trying to change the methodology of how the federal assistance grants are handed out, as Councillor Wallace can testify to. When anything like that comes up, the metropolitan councils just seem to outweigh the regional councils on how that's dealt with. So, and it goes up to the national conference every year that I've been involved anyway. So, but we'll see how we go. So, on that note, it's the Mayor, Councillor Ingram and Councillor Armstrong, two delegates to represent council and be registered with voting rights. Understood? Okay. Did I have a mover and a seconder? I did have. Thank you. So I'll put that. All in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Takes me to item 21-191, cash and investment report. Councillors, there's a report there and a recommendation. Councillor Manchester's moved that. Councillor Horton seconded. Thank you. Any questions in regard to that? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Again, thank you, councillors. Unanimous. Item 21-192, outstanding rates and charges and sundry debtors report. Councillors, there's a report and a recommendation there. Move, Councillor Manchester. Seconded, Councillor Armstrong. Thank you.
With a question.
Question, Councillor Armstrong.
Yes, just in regard to the total rates charges outstanding. In the future reports, can we get the current rate levy separated out and the percentage collection for the current rate levy, and then the arrears listed separately with the collection rates for the arrears, please? It makes it a bit difficult to understand how much is owing in the current year if we don't know what the total levy was.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll throw to the CFO who is online. Ms. Taylor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it should be no problem to do that. Just for your information, in this report, the not due represents the full portion of this year's levy, and the total of that was approximately $23 million across rates and other charges. So 31% of that has been paid to the 31st of August in relation to the current year.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Council. Did Councillor Manchester, Councillor Stadtmiller, I'll come to you, Councillor Manchester first, and Councillor Stadtmiller.
Yeah, just another comment, Mr. Mayor, and once again, I'd like to congratulate the staff. These figures are going the right over the last few months, and especially previous month and this month have gone going the right direction. Last month was quite an outstanding month for collection. This one not so quite as good, but very good. So congratulations to the staff.
Thank you, Councillor Manchester. I'll go to Councillor Stadtmiller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wondering if Councillor Armstrong would like to make that a little bit more formal by putting it in an amendment, because we're often at council meetings asking for things to be done, but it's not becoming a formal resolution and then they're not being acted upon. A quick example is what we discussed about the Roberts Park lights last month, and I expected there to be a report in this month's business paper, and we say we'd like things to happen, but they aren't. So I'm happy to support Councillor Armstrong if he would make that a resolution so that it can come back to council.
I'll throw to Councillor Armstrong.
Yes, I'm happy to move accordingly.
You have some wording around it, please, Councillor.
The council receive and note the report, and that future reports provided to council will list the total rate levy for the year and the collection to date.
To put it up on screen.
And we're just going to have the minute secretary put that up on screen, so to ensure that we absolutely get the wording right. Thank you. Councillor Armstrong, is that wording B, future reports provided to council list rate levy to year and collections to date? Is that the correct wording?
Yes, I'm mindful of the fact that these will be as at the end of the previous month, and that's for clarification of what is meant by collections to date. That would be to the end of the previous month.
Thank you. So future reports provided to council list rate levy to the...
To month end.
To month end?
Yep.
To month end and collections to date. Councillor Armstrong?
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Oh, sorry. Happy with that, Councillor Manchester? You were the mover? Yep, thank you. That being the case, I'll put that. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. I'm sorry, Councillor Rolls, did you vote for? Yep, for. Distracted with. Thank you. (21)193. Development application stats for August 2021. There's a report there, councillors, and a recommendation. Moved Councillor STADTMILLER. Seconded Councillor Ingram. Thank you.
Just a declaration, Mr. Mayor. I believe that I have a pecuniary interest in two matters in the statistics for development applications. I may have also had it last month, but the writing was rather small and I couldn't make it out. But I believe that those two properties pertain to me in that attachment one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I did call. I didn't miss item 7, did I? I did call for disclosures of interest earlier in the meeting. Yep, I did. Thank you for disclosing that, Councillor STADTMILLER. And noted that the conflict could have been, the interest could have been there last month. Thank you very much for that. Having said that, Councillor Manchester.
Yeah, question to the director if she's available. There was a development, DA development. I might have overlooked it through the list. I'm not sure, but the for a development on Rhodes Road. I was just wondering whether that's been withdrawn.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, the application hasn't been withdrawn. We will be forwarding a letter to the applicant to see if they are interested in withdrawing that statistics. Otherwise, we will have to determine it.
Because I believe the property has been sold. I'm fairly sure it has been sold.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. The applicant, all applications go with the land. So even if the property is sold, it would be up to the new owner to withdraw that application.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Director. So to move in a seconder. Any other questions in regard to that report? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Takes me over to 21194, draft tree policies. The reports there, councillors, and the recommendation is that council receive a note report and following the completion of a 28-day period of exhibition, that council endorse the revised policies. Draft rural roadside vegetation management within council owned and managed roads policy. Wow. And draft urban tree management policy within council owned and managed lands. Do I have a mover and a second to start with? Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Rolls. Any questions in regard to that? Councillor Flannery, he's got his hand up first. There's a few hands. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, it's good to see this finally back on the agenda and about to go out for consultation. I'm just curious, there's been a number of roadworks, particularly Heathfield Lane back in winter, where there was substantial disturbance of the roadside verge and then dumping of soil. I asked questions at the last meeting about dumping of significant amount of topsoil or overburden on the corner of Cunningar Road and Campbellfields Road. What permits, if any, do we need to deposit overburden on our road verges? And what
Councillor Flannery, I'm just not too sure if we've digressed off what we're actually on at the moment with the tree policy.
This, if you read it, Mr. Mayor, this refers to not only trees but roadside vegetation.
Yeah.
Replacement. I'll find the spot there.
No, you're right. It's called roadside vegetation management. Yeah, I understand that.
Yep. In the road maintenance zone. It's not clear from reading this policy where the dumping of that overburden fits. So I'm just wondering whether it is clear enough.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Flannery, and I take your point on board. Exactly what you said and clarified for me. Thank you. Pass to the Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, the policy speaks to an overall policy of management of roadside verges. The Roads Act allows for temporary storage of products on council-owned road reserves. That's not encapsulated in the rural roadside vegetation policy. This is dealing with the three zones that we have, which is the actual verges and then the disturbed zone and then the natural vegetation. And that's what the policy is addressing. The management of overburden is part of a separate process of council and does not, the policy by its very nature is to be a guidance and strategic document. And then there are other documents within council that manage the rest of that. So for this purposes, the policy is about an overall guiding strategic document, and the actual management of roadworks and on roadside verges as part of a project is another process entirely.
Thank you. That Councillor Flannery, that address?
Well, I'm not. It doesn't. I understand there's a separate policy. It does say in here that it can't disturb the road outside the disturbed. Consultation of the current roadside vegetation management guidelines to ascertain the vegetation conservation value and determine the best practice actions. And it goes through, and it seems a bit inconsistent with what's been happening, but I accept there's another policy. Just on the grazing, and this is perhaps not entirely relevant to except that it's listed in the schedule. It lists grazing, that it's an offence under the Impounding Act, blah, 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 to graze without a permit. Then it goes on to say grazing is considered a key threatening process under the BC Act, which I assume is Biodiversity Conservation Act. Therefore, council has a right to refuse or specify conditions in an application. How does that fit? I'm advised that we don't have any rights of refusal under the proposals by LLS for the leasing of TSRs. Can the Director confirm whether we have any rights of refusal, please?
To the Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the policy also refers to we will be acting under the direction of the Land Care Services. So LLS will direct whatever they are planning to do in terms of grazing on road verges. This is outside of the grazing of road verges through LLS. This is if there are adult cattle on the road verges, we can have a look at it and say, no, you can't be grazing here. That's a separate process, and it is referenced in the policy that the LLS process is captured as well.
I don't think that entirely answered the question. The question was, do we have any rights of refusal over LLS cattle that have been given leasehold rights for TSRs, and they necessarily have to traffic along council roads, remembering not roads are TSRs, but all roads are TSRs. And that's a critical point. Do we have any rights of refusal?
And that would be taken on a case-by-case basis, Councillor Flannery, through you, Mr. Mayor, that each application will be taken on its merits and it will be considered within the context of the policy.
Thank you for that.
It's pretty much a yes or no answer. Do we have any rights of refusal?
I'll throw the Director of Planning, shed some light.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, applications received for grazing of animals, Council can have an assessment of that, and if it is identified as a threatening area or the level of a travelling stock route, as you would know, they have different classifications of what can be grazed through different areas. There's that classification in the travelling stock route policy. One of the matters will be now that the LLS is taking over this, that is taking Council's authorisation and ability to restrict where the grazing is being done. But as we know, we've made our submission to the local land services in light of that policy that they're preparing.
So I can only assume that's a no.
Sounding like a Councillor Flannery at the moment, but we'll have to wait and see, case-by-case basis, so yeah, as the Director said. Councillor Stadtmiller, did you have a question? I think, yeah, Councillor Stadtmiller.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just point 4 of the draft rural roadside vegetation management within council-owned and managed roads policy. It says generally defined as, but not limited to, 1 metre either side of a sealed road or trafficable surface up to 5.5 metres above the ground. I just did send out earlier the photograph of a crash that occurred last week with a tree that would have been more than 1 metre away from the side of the road, but on a bad corner. And I also have issues, I haven't measured it, but the fencing is rather close to that tree, which makes the roadway and the actual road appear to be less than 30 metres. And I thought there was a 30 metre minimum on the distance that you had to have between one fence and the other for the road to pass through. So I just think council should be looking at some of these trees that are quite large and have already had limbs cut off them and maybe have them removed altogether. If that tree wasn't there on Friday, that accident potentially would have been avoided. So I just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stadtmiller, for that. Councillor Rolls has a hand. Councillor Rolls.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I just have a question as to the submissions, and I did send an email asking about this. I do know that another person not listed here put in a submission because it was actually sent to me as well. I'm just inquiring whether the council received that submission or whether it was too late to be included, or has just the writer of the submission's name been excluded?
I'll pass to the relevant Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what we've captured in the attachment to the paper was what we've received. I can certainly investigate that. I believe that if it doesn't significantly change what the content of the policy is, we could make those updates and then update the policies as required so that we can get the policies activated, and then within 12 months of the new council, these policies will also be reviewed. But I take that on notice, Councillor Rolls, and understand that if we have missed one of those comments, I'll certainly go back to the team and make sure that the comments from the particular respondent is not missed in the policy.
Okay, thank you. And if for whatever reason the person who put in the submission stuffed it up, they would have another opportunity to voice their views when it's reviewed next year. Is that what you're saying, Director?
That is correct, Councillor Rolls. All policies need to be reviewed within 12 months of the new council. So again, if it's not a significant change to the policy, they will have the next opportunity. But if it's a small amendment that we need to include in the policies before it goes live, as long as council is endorsing these policies as they stand, we can make minor amendments to put it up on the website and make it an active policy.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question in regard to the submissions. I note that the EIC have a number of issues that they've raised there, one of which relates to, it would appear as though it relates to customer service. I do note that the council's response is that customer interaction will be guided by the requirements as per the current customer service policy and procedures. I'm just wondering, and I can see Councillor Wallace with as much interest as myself there, wondering which policy that would be, given that council hasn't adopted a policy yet, but we have a draft policy that we're considering.
I agree. I was wondering, it hasn't been out to public display yet. I was wondering what we were talking about.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm just getting clarification. Who'd like to speak to that? Thank you, Claire. That was to go out on public exhibition. I thought you got Director. Pass to you.
I'll just talk about the community policy, the customer service policy that you just mentioned there, Councillor Armstrong. Through my research of policies and plans in our system, I did come across a customer service policy. If it's adopted or endorsed by council, that would be another consideration I would have to take on notice and get back to you either through a council newsletter or back via council.
I'll just add to that through the mayor. The public consultation period, the 28 days, ends today, so the policy will be coming back to council at the next meeting for your consideration for adoption. So if it's one month out, it will be 1 month out, but there will be the policy as brought forward at the last meeting.
So can I take it we'll be adopting this policy, but the policy won't really have effect because we won't have a customer service policy to bring that into effect. Is that correct? I'm just a bit confused about this. Through you, Mr. Mayor, if there is any doubt, in the absence of a policy for Hilltops, each former council would be compliant to, because none of the other policies would have been rescinded. So this policy would be adhering to the customer service policies that existed in the former councils. So there would be those policies. But as has been pointed out, that has not been a finer point which we've adhered to, and we're looking to fix that. Hopefully it'll be rectified next month, and then this policy will be able to be afforded effect in regard to those issues raised by the EIC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor STADTMILLER.
Just seeking some clarification, Mr. Mayor, and I may be wrong. I'm hoping other councillors can help me out, or you can help me out here. I thought that all council policies where there was a duplication of the former Young, Harden and Borough councils were rescinded, and that the Young policy was to take precedence over that too. Remember that?
That's correct, Councillor STADTMILLER. The understanding was that if that was the case, that the policies that stood with the former Young Council was the policy that would be adhered to until the new policy was adopted.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've had discussion around that and those matters. Mover and a seconder, so I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Takes us to our next item, which is, I've lost the page, there we go. 21195, McDonald's Road closure, New Life Church. Now, here's a bit of history, councillors. There's a report there and a recommendation there. Have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Armstrong. Seconded, Councillor Rolls. Any questions or discussion in regard to the matter? If not, I'll put it. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Works report, councillors. The work 21196 is a report there and recommendations. A mover and a seconder to start with. Move Councillor Flannery, seconded Councillor Manchester. Any questions, Councillor Flannery? I can just see you've nearly dropped out of picture. Councillor, move your iPad a bit somewhere. Yeah, there. That's better. Thank you, Councillor Flannery. You're on mute, councillor.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Whether I ask this question here or in the works completed report, I am still waiting for an answer to the Basham's Lane / Old Monteagle Road causeway that was put in last year, and I guess it probably cost 300,000 or 400,000, and I didn't ever see it in our budget estimates. And I've asked for some costing details on that. There was substantial work that occurred there. I think it's surely, with my knowledge of how council staff fill out their timesheets, a fairly straightforward process. So it's frustrating that we haven't had that back yet. And if it's because the information is hard to gather, well, then it highlights more significant problems. So I hope that's not the case. I hope it's just a lack of thought in getting it to council. The other significant, I raised at the last meeting, and it was on the agenda at the workshop. There was $14 million handed out to Hilltops Council as part of the amalgamation funds. And other than a few small projects like work at the Mechanics Institute and History Hall in Murrumba, none of the money allocated to the Harden precinct has been spent on the significant projects. And I am bothered by it, annoyed by it, frustrated by it. It's incompetence in my view.
Councillor Flannery, we just need to be cautious on our wording, and I'm just not too sure if the grants, if you're talking about the grant money, I understand that, but it's probably not relevant to this works report.
Mr. Mayor, I think it is relevant because the works report has worked at hand and forward works. Now, we've received grant money for this 5 years ago. It should be somewhere in Kitty. It's not even clear where the funds are being held. We've now about to enter the second season of sporting events at Harden with no lighting facilities at Roberts Park, and the pool will be open again shortly. We were told that the lights at the Harden pool were condemned 2 years ago by the then director. I disputed it on 3 separate occasions. I disputed it, and I disputed the validity of the reports. I dispute the money needs to be spent, but given it was allocated in a budget, surely something can be done about it. And I think it is high time some of these matters were addressed. Where is the money and when is the work going to get done? It's just not good enough.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. I'll throw to the Director if you'd like to answer any of that. I'll take it on notice.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we have provided an update about Roberts Park lighting and the work that's been progressing there. We've also provided an update through the councillor newsletter on Harden pools and the work that's progressing there. We continuously monitor the delivery of the grant funding work, and that the money that has been set aside for any grant project is allocated to that project. It is making sure that the solution that we provide and the infrastructure that we provide delivers the outcomes we expect. Sometimes these things take a little bit longer. Yes, we did have the Roberts Park lighting and the pool come to council at the end of last year, and there has been significant work that has to be done. And that will continue to progress. And once we have further indication of how we're going to progress with particularly the filtration and all the pools in council, we will come back to council with those answers. It is something that we are currently working on, and it is high on our agenda. And we need to make sure, just like when we approach any of the bridges or any other construction, we need to make sure that the solution is actually going to achieve the outcomes that the project needs to deliver.
Thank you for that.
Look, no, I actually want a date when it was asked at a council meeting, so it should come back to a council meeting, not through council notes that the public don't see. 5 years ago, the money was allocated for the Robert Park lights. 2 years ago, we were allocated money for Murrumbula Creek. We need on the agenda a timeline for the work to happen, start and be completed on the council business paper, please. I have asked for it on numerous times. In fact, I'd like to move a motion that we get reports on Murrumbula Creek, Roberts Park lights and the pool lighting at Harden, please.
I'll second that.
And it's seconded by Councillor Stadmiller. Just make sure we get that worded right for you, Councillor Flannery.
Mr. Mayor, can I just speak to Councillor Flannery quickly?
Sorry, Councillor. We're just trying to, just give me a second to get this wording right, and then, yep, we'll go then, yep.
It was Murrumbula Creek, Roberts Park lighting, and the Harden Pool lighting. That is correct, Councillor Flannery?
Yes, please, Mr. General Manager.
Just on a procedural part, you moved the motion and Councillor Manchester seconded the motion. So if Councillor Manchester is happy for it to be absorbed into the motion, it would become the motion. And if you're not, then a second motion would stand that as moved by Tony Flannery and seconded by Councillor Stadmiller. So, Councillor Manchester, are you happy with those additions?
I'm more than happy to let those reports, that part of the motion, be part of mine. Yep, more than happy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No. I think that all councillors understand what that was about. Councillor Stadmiller?
Yes, just wanted to know if Councillor Flannery would like to put a date on that report as being the next meeting, because we have lost a month. Councillor Flannery and I were both vocal at the last meeting about getting a report and actually hoping that work would be completed before we got back to this meeting. And from what we can see, nothing's been done. There's no report. So if Councillor Flannery would like to state
yes.
that motion.
Thank you. Take the report to come back to the October meeting, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. So, okay, with that in mind, councillors, any other questions for anyone else in regard to that report? Councillor Armstrong?
Yes, just Mr. Mayor, through you to the Director of Operations, Infrastructure rather, the Swift Street water main replacement, 550 metres of it is completed. How much more is to be completed? And are those works being undertaken by council's day labour force or contractors?
To the Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I will take that on notice and come back to council with the answer on that.
Thank you, Director. Any other questions in regard to the report? Councillor Stadmiller?
Very quickly, just in regards to the Swift Street water mains replacement, Swift Street has had a number of problems over the years. I've seen sections of the water main dug up 3 or 4 times within the space of 6 months and had to be patched. So when the pressure is actually made even harder by fixing the holes that are regularly patched and are exploding up the top of Swift Street, the bottom of Swift Street, which is one of the lowest parts of Murrumbara, will have even more force put on the parts that have been repeatedly patched, and we may need to continue that all the way down to the Murrumbula Creek. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. I had a comment to make on the report, and that's in relation to the work presently being done on Millvale Road. And I don't know, the dozens of phone calls I've had, pleasing phone calls that after a long time, work has finally commenced on what is one of the busiest roads into Young, and they're very pleased with it. And I keep getting a repeated question asked to me, and I hadn't mentioned it before I brought it up, but given in the mode of our last council meeting and the community talking about transparency and collaboration with our community and keeping our community informed, I probably will ask the question tonight to Councillor Rolls, and that is, the question to me is, how could these councillors vote against allocating funding to do the Millvale Road works? So I said, in the light of transparency and collaboration with our community, I would ask the question. I don't know if you've got an answer for the community, Councillor Rolls, or not.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor, you don't have to answer that, by the way.
Mayor,
Thank
I call
you.
a point of order.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Rolls.
Choose not to answer. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Walker, you raised a point of order.
Yeah, I think it's completely out of order that a councillor should be put on the spot like that for making the decision they did.
I'm pretty sure if you look in the Code of Meeting Practice, Councillor Walker, I'm quite within my rights, and given that at the last council meeting, there was a councillor that I'm referring to who asked for transparency and to collaborate with our community and listen to our community, and when we make decisions, explain why we make those decisions, and that was the question I was asked. It's been answered. Councillor Rose has declined to answer it. I'm happy. We'll move on. All those people in favour of the recommendation with the amendment in it, please raise your... Councillor Armstrong has a point before we... Or you're voting, Councillor?
No, just in regard to the works report, I do note that there seems to be what I'll call a lack of capital works involved in this report. The gravel reshooting appears to have been put on hold due to the wet weather. I can understand that. But apart from some footpaths and some block grant work, there doesn't appear to be too much capital works being undertaken. I do note that we had a budget that was adopted by council this year that was focusing on utilisation of council's day labour staff to perform as much capital works as it possibly could to try and improve the operating statement. I'm just looking at this and I'm not seeing a whole heap of council capital jobs being done. Can we get some update? I did ask it at the last council workshop in regards to a report and suggested that that's going to take a bit of time to put together. I'm reasonable about my expectations, I believe, in that regard. But I would express my deep concerns in regards to the capital works program and just exactly how far through that we're going to get.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Would the Director like to answer to that or take on notice or comment?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the request about providing an update on the Capital Works program has been noted and the team are busy working on that to provide it, and I believe the time frame was for November.
Thank you.
No later than, yes.
Thank you for that. On that note, I'll put that report. All those in favour? Against? Councillor Walker's against accepting that report without amendments. Thank you, councillors. It's carried. Sorry, councillor?
Did you say I was against it?
Yeah, I took the vote for and everyone raised their hands and you kept you down and then I was against and you put your hand up. So you're for it, Councillor Walker?
I had my hand up for.
Yeah, sorry, there was a time lag.
Was for. I had the hand up all the time.
There was a time lag. Thank you, Councillor Walker.
Time here is what we've got there. I had the hand up.
Thank you, Councillor. When I called for the hands, your hand wasn't up. It came up a bit late. I'll apologise if I misread your hand, and I thank you for your vote for. That item was passed unanimously. Thank you, Councillor. Takes us to 21-197, the Action Summary Report. With the report there, councillors, and the recommendation note the status of the action plan. Councillor Wallace moved, Councillor Manchester seconded. Any questions in regard to the works report, councillors? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Everyone's up. Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We come to correspondence for information. Media releases and Office of Local Government circulars as report their councillors and a recommendation to have a mover and a seconder. Moved, Councillor Horton. Seconded, Councillor Wallace. Thank you. Any questions? All those in question, Councillor Stadtmiller.
I might have missed it, I'm not sure, Mr Mayor. But I just feel that we could be putting out a few more media releases. I believe the Harden Amenities block was completed recently, and it could probably do with a media release and a bit of a puff piece that it's going to be ready for the upcoming season. We don't seem to be churning out enough pieces, in my opinion. I'd like to see some more media releases come out of council as to what's going on, but that comes down to the General Manager and his departments. Thanks.
Yep, that's noted. Councillor O'Connor, did you have your hand up? I'm not sure. Councillor O'Connor.
No, I didn't. I'm sorry. My internet keeps dropping out.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
On that note, I'll put that item. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Takes me to committee reports requiring action, and there's the minutes of the Hilltops Community Wellbeing Group. Section 355 requiring some action. Report there's councillors, and the recommendation is there that we receive and note the minutes of the group and note the information provided within the report. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Moved, Councillor Horton, seconded, Councillor O'Connor. Any questions in regard to that? If not, I'll put it. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Takes me over to item 21. 200, Hilltops Council Local Traffic Advisory Committee meeting minutes of 7th of September 2021, and the recommendation there, Council, receive and note the Hilltops Council Local Traffic Advisory Committee minutes, and all items recommended be placed on Council's action list for activities to be undertaken, subject to all conditions being met, and work undertaken within Council constraints and budget. Moved, Councillor Walker, seconded, Councillor Morton. Thank you. Very good. Any questions in regard to this item? We've got hands everywhere here. We've got Councillor Armstrong and then Councillor Stadtmiller.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in regard to the report, the traffic report item 2114, no right turn Taylor Road into Cook Crescent, Young. I'm just wondering what the rationale behind that was. Is it sight distance related? Is it speed related? Is it what's the purpose of it?
I'll throw to Councillor Walker, who's the chair of, I believe, that committee.
There's a report come in from the police officer stating sight distance as a safety concern.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Stadtmiller, there's a question then.
Just for clarification, was Councillor Walker the chair of the traffic committee?
I understand he is.
Yep. Just a question and a comment, if possible. I've been approached on a number of occasions that 40 kilometre signage be put in place near Bunyip Preschool in Bynelong Street at either end of the block. If you could place that on the next agenda and maybe get in touch with the General Manager of the Bunyip Preschool and the committee regarding that. It's a rather important item if that's possible. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Stadtmiller.
Can I hand that straight to the General Manager for the Director to get that on the next agenda, please?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, I'm sure the Director has taken a note of that 40 kilometre at the Bunyip Preschool. Thank you, Councillor Stadtmiller.
Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I raised it at the council meeting, but given we're dealing with the traffic committee, signage on the eastern side of Cusacks Road, Cunningar Road, approaching Cusacks Road. If we could get a sign 500 metres back saying Cusacks Road and too young. I've highlighted it at a previous council meeting that it's just dangerous. There's no indication that that's the turn off to Young. a lot of people come from Canberra or Sydney through that way, and they miss the turn and then they do the UE just before the crest of the next hill. So if we can get a sign up there. The other one that I've noticed recently, and I've forgotten, I don't know, the bridge just on the eastern side of Young on the Maringo Road, the giveaway is right on the bridge. Could a sign be put up about 200 metres on the eastern side, say giveaway ahead? Because there's a number of times I've seen vehicles not realising they've got a giveaway coming up. Local traffic do, but others don't. And if there could be a forewarning there, please.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. These matters that we might take to the Director and take to the Traffic Committee in the process that it's normally done. So we'll leave that there. There's a process of how that's done, but it's duly noted and there's safety concerns, so they need to be addressed. I'm not too sure if Councillor Manchester had his hand up a moment ago.
Yeah, I did, Mr. Mayor. It was to do with the issue that Councillor Stadtmiller raised about Bunyip School. I can't remember exactly when it was, but it'd be probably at least 12 months ago. It might be even a bit more than that. That did come up at a traffic committee meeting, and it didn't meet all the warrants. But it'd be certainly worth chasing again. But there was an issue with it, I believe.
Thank you for that, Councillor Manchester. Thank you. On that note, councillors, I'll put that report. All those, Councillor Riles, you have your hand up. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if this is the right place. I've just had it's just about disabled parking at the pool. I know a few meetings ago it was passed that the disabled parkings would be moved up, and I've had a couple of inquiries about then when that will happen with the summer approaching.
Thank you. Mr. Crisp is waving his hand anxiously to answer for you.
Thank you, Mr. Crisp.
Through the Mayor, the disabled parks are being relocated as we speak.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Crisp.
Thank you.
On that note, I'll put the report. All those in favour? Thank you. It's unanimous. Takes me over to 21-201, committee reports requiring no actions. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Armstrong's moved. Councillor Walker's second. All those in favour of accepting those? Thank you, councillors. Takes me over to questions with notice, which were nil. Notice of motion. We have a notice of motion put forward by Councillor Stadtmiller, and the notice of motion is there. Councillors, Councillor Stadtmiller, would you like to speak to your notice of motion?
I'll speak very briefly, Mr. Mayor. Everybody knows that I have a position on this and have had for a long time, and they're probably sick to death of it. But just wanting to give everybody the opportunity to do this and see how our community feels about the performance of council over the last few years. And one of the best ways to do that is by polling our community, which we can do at any time on any matter. So for those that are outgoing councillors, nothing to lose here by supporting this. And for those that are staying on, a great way to show that you're listening to your constituents to be re-elected potentially. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stadtmiller. Councillor Armstrong, have you got your hand?
Question to Councillor Stadtmiller.
Councillor Armstrong.
Just thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm reminded of section 9.18 of the Code of Meeting Practice, and I propose to put my question directly, succinctly, respectfully, and without argument. So, to Councillor Stadtmiller, what are you proposing this motion will achieve, given that Burrawa Shire, Hardin Shire and Young Shire have not been current local government entities for over 5 years, and in the case of a demerged Burrawa Shire, the Murrumbidgee Shire and Municipality of Burrawa have not been local government entities since 1944. In the case of a demerged Hardin Shire, the Demondrell Shire and Municipality of Murrumbidgee have not been local government entities since 1975. And in the case of a demerged Young Shire, the Burrangong Shire and Municipality of Young have not been local government entities since 1980.
Councillor Stadtmiller.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor Armstrong. Obviously very well prepared. look, I'm just hearing from the people out there that I speak to that they're unhappy with the merger, and I can't speak to the past history of Burrangong and the Mondrill and so forth, and the rules and regulations and times that they were merged into the entities that became further entities. I'm simply seeking on the ballot the chance to ascertain the individual community stance based on former Shire Council boundary lines being Harden Shire Council, Bora Shire Council, Young Council. It's as simple as that, and happy for you to not vote on this or vote on this, Councillor Armstrong. Thanks.
The next thing I might do, councillors, before we do anything else, is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Manchester seconds the motion.
Yeah, I'll second it, but just
you.
open it up for discussion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'll discuss just quickly, and then I'll just stay right out of it. I'm following along the lines of the question that was asked to Councillor Stadtmiller. I have no problem with putting anything to the public. I just cannot, for the life of me, understand how you wanted to merge the former Young Council when it doesn't exist, the Harden Council that doesn't exist, or the Burrawa Council that doesn't exist. I think I understand your intent, but this notice of motion is poorly put together and doesn't make any common practice sense, I'm sorry, and I can't support it for that reason. Would anyone like to speak for it? Speak for it? You're going to speak for that? Well, I'm calling for someone to speak for it. Councillor Manchester wants to speak for it.
Look, just more of a question.
Well, no, I'm just asking, would anyone else like to speak for it first? No. Would someone like to speak against it? Councillor Horton wants to speak against it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to start by saying, without change, there can be no growth. And 3 good shires have merged, 16 of 17 villages. And that's big, nearly 20,000 residents, over 7,000 square kilometres. We have change and we're getting growth. If we just look in Harden, the things that have happened there, we were talking earlier about the millions of dollars that we haven't spent. We probably haven't had the manpower at the time to do it all. I don't know. But we got something like $15 million from the state government to spend in New South Wales when we merged, to spend in our Hilltops area. This council, in the majority, have worked very hard to make the merger work. I remember in the first 12 or 18 months, we went to nearly every village in the town and conducted meetings. And those of us that turned up realised how much they appreciated that. I walked down the streets of Harden, Young and Bora, and I must be honest, nobody's spoken to me in the negative about amalgamation or merging. Yes, 3 years ago, yes, but time's cured that. They can see things happening. Look in Harden, $1 million in the rugby league ground there, $1 million out at the showground to put up an amenities block, $3 or $4 million pledged for the creek in Murrumbara. And it just goes on and on and on. And the same over in Bora. Tennis courts, new beautiful tennis courts, skate park. Same in Young here, fix the swimming pool up, fixing the water problems. The merger is good, give it time to work. And this Hilltops will grow and grow and grow to be one of the best in the regional New South Wales. Why do we want to be trying to pull it apart after 4 years of trying to merge it and make it work? No doubt there are 1 or 2 out there complaining. There always will be. But 99% in my book are in favour of merger. And I think we should get off and not stir that up for political gain or for whatever. We should get on with the merger and make it work. And I'm against that motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. So I'm after if there's another speaker for the motion. If there's not, I'll give Councillor Stadtmiller his right of reply, which is entitled to Councillor Stadtmiller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I can see where Councillor Armstrong's coming from with the way it's worded, but the intent of the or the way that's being interpreted might be a better way to put it. But the intent there is that each of the former Shire areas be given the opportunity to have their say as to demerge from the current Hilltops Council. If that's lost on a few people, I can't help that. I'm hearing the complete opposite to what Councillor Horton's hearing. Yes, we do have all these shiny new things, and we'll be the ones in the community paying for it in the long run. They probably should have been delivered under Katrina Hodgkinson or previous members. I think it's just a bit of catch up by the state government at the time to share us with some of these things, which will prove to be very useful in the future, but have been a long time coming. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor STADTMILLER. So it's the right reply. So on that note, I'll put the notice of motion. Councillor, I see Councillor's hand there. I don't know what for. We went through it and I called and Councillor STADTMILLER's had his right to reply. So I think the debate is nearly done. Look, seeing that in the good faith that I am, Councillor O'Connor had a hand first and Councillor Flannery. So you both can speak and then I'll put the motion.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just a question to Councillor STADTMILLER. I understand the intent of the motion, but what I don't understand is what can it possibly achieve? I mean, what's the purpose of finding out if there's 20% or 30%? What can it possibly achieve?
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor STADTMILLER?
Yeah, with all due respect to Councillor O'Connor, I don't believe democracy was undertaken properly the first time round. We had what I would describe as a sham process with these delegates coming out of Sydney to administer meetings. We had the Harden Country Club packed out with 400 people who were there because they didn't want to be merged. That was one indication. And I just think there's still a lot of discontent within the community about these mergers. And this gives us a statistical response, which therefore gives us a democratic response to whether these mergers are to continue. It's been 5 years now and we have an accumulated deficit without grants and capital contributions over the last 5 years of $45 million. I don't know where we're going to be in 10 years if it stays together. And there's a number of other people that are working in various areas such as Bombala.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you for your answer, Councillor STADTMILLER, and it was worded quite well. Thank you. Councillor Flannery, and then...
I'm speaking against the motion for two reasons. One is, as outlined by Councillor Armstrong, that we simply can't vote on a motion to demerge three separate councils back to what they were before. And if you vote on a motion, you have to vote on the fact on what is written in black and white. So intentionally or otherwise, it's an invalid motion, really. But to address, I think, and I think it does need to be addressed, because there's to spend 5 years going over the same points. Yes, a lot of people in the community didn't support the amalgamation, and some people still don't support the amalgamation. A lot of people wanted other amalgamations. It has been I think for all of us, 4 very difficult years for a whole range of reasons. We've tried to put forward 3 organisations into one, and doing that in a business would be difficult, let alone doing it in a community with councils. But I think by and large, we've all tried to work hard to make the most of it, and it's not going to be demerged. That's the fact of it. There are no details on where we are going to get the funds from. Should a genie pop out of a bottle and grant you this wish, where are we going to get the funds from to operate the 3 former shires with the very changed situation that we're in? We have to deal with the reality of the situation. The reality is we are now one council. We need to represent our communities, and it starts with the whole community being Hilltops, and then the individual components of that community to get the best outcomes for everyone. And I'm sorry that after 4 years, you're still bitter about it. But most of us have turned up to many, many meetings trying to do our best. Some of the time we've failed, but we've tried to do our best. And I think we have got to move on.
Thank you for your input, Councillor Flannery. The General Manager's got... Mr. General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just so it's very, very clear, when I received this notice of motion, I did speak to the Office of Local Government in the way it was worded, and their words that the motion was not unlawful. So if there's any question about the lawfulness or validity of the motion, it is a valid motion. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. General Manager. On that note, I'll put the motion and the recommendation that's there by Councillor STADTMILLER. All those in favour? I'll do that again. All those in favour of the motion, could you raise your hands, please? Those against? Let's be clear, councillors.
Against.
Councillor Manchester, I can't see your hand, or you're for.
No, I'll support Matt on it.
I just need to be clear, councillors. We'll start again. And could everyone please stay on the screen with a hand? All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. Councillor Manchester and Councillor Stadtmiller, thank you. Those against? Is Councillor Walker, Councillor Wallace, Councillor Rolls, Councillor Flannery, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Rolls, and Councillor Ingram and Councillor Horton. Thank you. The notice of motion is lost.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. And the meeting is closed at... Oh, I must be in a good mood, Councillor Stadtmiller. What would you like?
I just want to finish with a little bit of humour.
That'll be this will be interesting. This will be interesting.
I was nearly about to thank Councillor Flannery, but due to the lag, because he's probably outside in a tractor or doing something, he voted the other way. But I will thank Councillor Manchester, because I think he did come on board there at the end. But anyway, we nearly had you, Tony.
Good to see you smiling, Councillor Stadtmiller. Very pleasing.
Thanks, Matt.
I'll call the meeting closed at 6:16 p.m. Thank you, one and all.